Okay, so for this week's exercise, I'd like you to use these two videos and kind of go along with me here. And we're going to use the rigging and animation tools and techniques that we've learned thus far to just make a simple animation of like a wavy, some like imagine if you had curtains or a flag or something. This is one way we could use rigging to kind of animate a flag kind of moving in a more naturalistic way. So let's start with, I'm going to just going to build kind of a thin, tall, right, just sheet here, right? And again, remember our subdivisions. I'm going to do 40, and I'll do 40 on the width. And then subdivision depth, we don't need that many. I'll just do 3. Okay, so we've got this polygon model here. And now we're going to go to rigging. And let's just we'll put in a series of joints, right? And let's go to rigging. And let's say, I'm just going to, in the middle here, I'm going to turn on the X-ray, right? And let's just say, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but every 2.5 units on the grid. Okay. And then line that up so it's inside your polygon shape. Okay, that looks good. Okay, turn on your X-ray and all of these here. Okay, so our joints are all inside our polygon shape here. And if you recall from the last video, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the joint, and we're going to select the polygon, and we're going to go to skin and bind skin. Okay. Okay, so now we have that, and if you want to kind of test that out, if you want to see this, you see this rainbow effect here on the joints, that tells you that it's binded successfully to a polygon model. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do some management in our outliner here, just to keep things right a little bit more clean. You can rename these, on whatever you were doing. If you were doing like, a snake or a spine or just whatever you were doing, you would want to rename these so we can keep things a bit more organized. And you'll see why here, because we're going to be creating a lot of different things. So like I said, we don't want to necessarily be manipulating the joints, right? So professional animators, what they do is they create a skeletal system, and they don't want that to get altered, right? Because if one thing gets messed up there, then everything gets messed up. So what they do is they create these control handles to manipulate the joints, but the joints themselves are not, the input that is telling the joint to do what it needs to do is coming from another source, right? It's not manipulating the joint directly. And it'll make a little bit more sense as we go through this. But what we're going to do now is we're going to come to curves here, okay? And we're going to create curves that are going to be assigned to these joints, and then we manipulate that curve to make the joint do what we want it to do. So I'm just going to create a curve, and you'll see one just kind of just pops up here. So you're going to have to rotate this thing a little bit, because I'm going to put this joint here. Let me make this large here. So I'm going to rotate this joint 90 degrees. Okay. And I'm going to line it up over this first joint right here. And let me just go into the orthographic view so you can kind of see a little bit more. And I'm going to scale this up a bit bigger just so I can see it. This doesn't affect, making this big doesn't really affect anything. This is just making it more visible. Okay, so line this up, right, with that first joint, the root joint. And once you have that kind of lined up, okay, so that's lined up, bisecting that root joint right here. So we have our series of joints, and this circle is perpendicular to that root joint. Okay, then once we have that first one in place, if you remember how to duplicate, we're going to Control D, and we're copying that and we're moving the next one to that next joint right here. See? So that's going up with that next joint. Once that's in place, go ahead and hit Control D again. And you'll do this for all of the joints here, okay? Now, if you want to get precise, so I'm just doing this by hand, but once you do Control D, you see if you want to make it so it's precise, if you hold down V, right, you'll see a lot of V's just happening here because I have this on. If you hold down V and then use the middle mouse button to move, you'll see that this is snapping. So this will snap to that direct middle here. Doesn't matter how you do it, just depends on how much precision you want. That's one way you can do it, but I'm just going to keep doing Control D and I'm just going to manually move these. Okay? And again, I'm lining up. I'm using my orthographic views. Okay, Control D to line up exactly on that middle point of the joint. Control D. Okay. Control D. Okay. Okay, so now I have a series of control curves, control circles that I can use. However, these circles they're not binded to anything yet. So that's going to be a step that we're going to do here in a moment. But what I want to make sure to do is I want to make sure that these all run in the same parent-child relationship. So when I click on this curve here, notice it's just selecting this one, right? What I want it to do is I want it to mirror the same functions as these joints. So when I select this joint, see it selects all of them because this is the parent joint, right? And then if I select well, this joint, you see it only selects these ones here. I want to do the same for these control circles here. So the way to do that, as you see, right, you see Nurb circle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember from earlier in the semester how we can parent objects to each other. So I'm going to come to Nurb circle 2 and I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, drag it on top of the 1. That creates a group there. Then I'm going to open this up and then use the middle mouse button and I'm going to drag circle 3 onto circle 2. Right? And then go down the list. Open that back up, take circle 4, drag that on top of circle 3. Open that up, take circle 5, drop that on circle 4. Okay, so I'm just going to finish this here. Okay, so what this has done is this has created the same priority system. So when I click on this control, right, curve, all of them get selected, right? If I select this control, got to be precise here. If I select this control, then it selects everything up, right? So it's mirrored the same way as the joints, okay? Now, we're getting a lot of clutter over here, and we're going to do one more thing that's going to cause even more clutter. But again, we'll fix that here in a moment. So what we need to do now is we need to assign each of these control circles to a specific joint, right? So the way we do this is we're going to select. So you could, you might think that we could just parent one thing to the next, but that can cause problems. Again, if you mess up something in the joint, then that ruins the whole project, right? You only want to be making selections and alterations to the control curves, okay? So this is how we would do that. So Nurb circle 1, and again, you would want to rename these. I mean, I'm not doing it now just for the purpose of the exercise, but in the projects that you would do, whatever this object is, whether it's a flag or a crane arm or whatever it is, just get in the habit of naming these things in the outliner just to keep yourselves a bit more organized. But so what we do here is we're going to click on Nurb circle 1 and then holding command, we're going to click on joint 1. So both of these things are selected. We're going to come up to constrain and we're going to hit parent. Okay. So we're essentially parenting these, and what it's doing is it's creating a link. So we're not directly parenting it. We're kind of creating a I don't know the language to use here, but we're creating like a transparent parents joint. So it's there and we can delete that relationship here at any time. But so let's go ahead and do this. So Nurb circle 2, command, and joint 2. Go to constrain, go to parent. Okay. Nurb circle 3, command, joint 3, constrain, parent. Okay. So we're going to do this for all of them. Make sure you're precise here. Click on the right things. Okay, Nurb circle 6, joint 6, constrain. So what this is doing is this is assigning each one of these control curves, control circles, to one of those joints. Okay, parent, Nurb circle 8, constrain, and parent, Nurb circle 9, constrain, and then parent. Okay. So now each of these, and we can test this out if you want, right? So each of these circles, right? So when I select this constrained circle, now when I manipulate this, it's going to manipulate the polygon itself, right? So that's good. That tells me this is working, okay? So again, I'm not selecting the joint. I'm selecting the curve, the control circle, right? That's what we're dealing with here. So I'm just going to Command Z. I'm going to undo that. So yeah, just so test out where you are, make sure that's working. And like I said, there's a lot of visual clutter right now, but we're going to clean this up, okay? So if you see here in the outliner, we've got a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to minimize that joint 1. I'm going to minimize that Nurb circle 1. And what we can do here is I'm going to select this right here. So the joints, we don't want the joints to get messed with at all, right? Because we're not messing with the joints, we're altering the control curve. So what we can do is we can create a new layer, and this little icon right here, create a new layer and assign selected object. So I'm already on joint 1, so I'm just going to select this here, and I'm going to label this no touchy, okay? Because we don't want to mess with that, right? And even here, I can, if I want, I can label this no touchy, right? Because again, once we get the skeletal rigging correct, right, we want that to maintain its form. We don't want anything to get accidentally messed with or moved. So that can be no touchy. And then to even help us further, we can just go to V, turn that off, so we can't even see them, right? So now all we see are the control curve mechanisms and the polygon shape itself, okay? So I'm going to stop the video here just so it's not so long, but you want to make sure you get to this point, right? So if you need to watch the video again and go back through, we basically want to have a thin wall like this with, you know, you don't have to have as many as I do, but just have several, you know, at least 7 or 8 joints that you've created, and then attach the control curve to it. And then in the next video, we're going to go through and we're going to animate this thing by manipulating these control circles. Okay?